And so anyway, I'd like to go ahead and talk a little bit. I had initially thought about starting the show with a hymn that's a modern hymn called Love Never Fails. But we didn't do that. We went ahead and stuck with the main intro music, just for convenience sake. But the reason that I wanted to bring it up is because that particular song, it's just simply sort of an ode to the value of love. And if you weren't aware that it's rooted in Scripture, you might hear that song and not even realize that it's a hymn. There's very little in there to hint at the supernatural message beyond that love is valuable. There's, I think, one line that says something like, love will not cease at the end of time. And that would be like a hint that what he's talking about is like God's love going on for eternity, even after the end of the world. But you wouldn't really read that into it if you weren't familiar with the Bible passages. Okay. You would tend to just think of that as a poetic thing, that love is enduring. I would think that a person unfamiliar with the Bible might consider it that way. But the passage that it's based on is in Corinthians, and it's attributed to Paul. And you hear this very frequently cited at weddings, and this is an abridged version of it. And he says, "Now I will show you the most excellent way. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames, but I have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud."
Okay, yeah, I've heard this a lot.
"It is not rude, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. And now these three remain, faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love." And I use this passage because, to me, this is a beautiful passage. And a lot of people recognize, the beauty of it. And most people value love. And there's a reason that this is quoted frequently at weddings. And that's because it is a beautiful statement about the enduring nature of love, the forgiving nature of love, and what it means to look at someone in love and to care about them unconditionally, and to understand that a life without love is, somehow less than it can be. And part of this that I want to point out is that for Scripture, the Christian will say, this is a beautiful passage inspired by God, and this is for, again, and you have to be, I'm not going to qualify everything that I say throughout this talk. So I will say at the outset, not all Christians believe the same things. I understand they have different views of the inspiration of Scripture. I'm not describing, that all Christians believe this, but there are Christians who will say, this was written through Paul.
I also hear that God hates fags.
Exactly. Okay. But this is supposedly written through Paul from God. So God used Paul, and he wrote these words, and this is, God's statement on love. And the problem that comes in with that aspect of it is, to me, that's a bit demeaning, in that I don't believe that God wrote this through Paul. I believe Paul wrote this. And I believe that Paul was expressing his own view, and that a human being can express this view, and that a human being can appreciate love, and that a human being can write a beautiful passage regarding love and understand the valuable aspects of love and express that in a way that is touching to other human beings so much that it endures for 2,000 years. And I don't think you have to be a god to give humanity this sort of literature.
Right. I mean, well, it's just another example of how God always gets credit for good things and people always get blamed for bad things.
And so I wanted to add a portion of Walt Whitman's Song of Myself, and he's writing this. It's a very long poem, and again, this is abridged. He says, "Welcome is every organ and attribute of me, and of any man hearty and clean. Not an inch nor a particle of an inch is vile, and none shall be less familiar than the rest. Trippers and askers surround me, people I meet, the effect upon me of my early life, or the ward and city I live in, or the nation, the latest dates, discoveries, inventions, societies, authors old and new, my dinner, dress, associates, looks, compliments, dues, the real or fancied indifference of some man or woman I love, the sickness of one of my folks or of myself, or ill-doing, or loss, or lack of money, or depressions, or exultations, battles, the horrors of fratricidal war, and recollecting as well that he lived much closer to the Civil War than we would have. The fever of doubtful news, the fitful events, these come to me days and nights and go from me again, but they are not the me, myself. Apart from the pulling and hauling stands what I am, stands amused, complacent, compassionating, idle, unitary, looks down, is erect, or bends an arm on an impalpable certain rest. Looking with side-curved head, curious what will come next, both in and out of the game and watching and wondering at it. I believe in you, my soul. The other I am must not abase itself to you, and you must not abase to the other. And what Whitman is saying here, the whole Song of Myself is an ode to the self. It is a celebration of the human self. And something
Christians would call evil, because it's worshiping yourself instead of God.
Right, because while he says, I believe in you, my soul, he makes it very clear that even in his belief, in whatever he's calling soul, and for the sake of argument, I'm willing to say, let's say that he has a spiritual belief in a supernatural soul, and that's what he's describing. If he describes this and says, it does not matter that I have this spiritual aspect that I believe in, the fact is it makes my physical self no less not vile, no less acceptable, no less a part of me, no less celebratory than whatever else I am. Whatever aspects of me exist are all aspects of me that need to be celebrated, not condemned. And so, in his mind, even if the soul exists, it's nothing better or worse than his physical existence. That's what he's describing. Neither one should abase the other.
Okay.
This, to me, is where I see redemptive religion fall down, because it does insist on an abasement of the human condition, of just simply human existence. And it does say that you can't achieve, you can't be good, you can't be worthwhile without grasping or valuing this aspect of yourself, which is so much better than the physical aspect of yourself. And it's in fact so much better than the physical aspect of yourself. It's the only thing that's worth going on, and that it is your physical nature that condemns you on whatever level you're condemned for a redemptive religion to make sense. I found a piece of I was looking for Shakespeare passages. The problem with Shakespeare is that there's so much beautiful text to read regarding Shakespeare that you can't really make a selection for an excerpt. So what I did is I found somebody writing about Shakespeare, and what he says is, in the class of literature we have here described, Shakespeare's dramas stand supreme. They are not religious works. They are not Christian, Buddhist, or Hindu scriptures. They are what we call secular dramas, worldly plays, if you like. But so transcendent is their beauty, and so luminous is their internal content, that they have held countless millions enthralled during their uninterrupted performance on the world stages ever since their first appearance over 350 years ago. And this is a testament to the talent of a fantastic human writer. And this same person goes on to then say, people see and read the plays for pleasure and pastime. In doing so, they expose themselves to a magic that by its very nature works upon their inner being, imparting to it basic patterns of the good and the true and the beautiful, charging it with impulses that propel it upward on its Godward way. The magical influence which they so exercise derives from that element which flowed into them from superhuman levels. These elements are purely spiritual. It is their presence in the dramas that truly makes of Shakespeare's plays humanity's lay Bible. And that, to me, is a slap in the face to what he just credited Shakespeare with. To say that Shakespeare is only capable of this because of his spiritual aspect, and we are only capable of appreciating this because of a spiritual aspect, to me is utter garbage. And it is wrong, and it is an affront to humanity.
Right. It is kind of a common tactic. I mean, when all else fails in the sense of trying to prove that something good has a religious origin, they can always fall back on the idea that, yes, well, because we recognize this is good, that just proves it is religious. Sort of like when we say, look at all these atheists who did good things, and then they say, oh, well, that just shows that they have morality written on their hearts by God.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do there.
And so redemptive religion, and I think the Christian message in essence is that as a human being, there is something so wrong with you that you require redemption, and that is generally either redemption from hell or redemption from the state of being somehow separated from God. And the way that you get back together with God is through being redeemed, which was achieved through the death of Jesus.